वाहेगुरु 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 वाहेगुरु. Okay, so thank you very much, Dr. Sarabjit Singh. And I'm just going to ask you some questions about your what your thoughts are on these symbols that we use in Sikhi. The symbols, for example, Kaur and Singh. You know, in Sikhi we use the symbolic titles of Kaur and Singh. For you, what do these symbolize? In terms of leadership, what does Kaur and Singh symbolize for you in terms of leadership?
Well, as it was thought of, the Kaur is symbolizing that person is a lady, is a Sikh lady, and the name suffices itself. Moment with a Singh is very definite that he is a Sikh person who follows the ethics, who follows the norms, who's brave, who's sporting, and he's brave, he's courageous, and he's a man of word. He says what it means, and he means what he says. Likewise, when we say Kaur, we know this lady is from Sikh religion or Sikh community, and per se she is brave, she is God-fearing, God-respecting, and she cares for the family. So the name Kaur and Singh is very nice symbol to be attached to we people.
I see. Okay, so symbolically, they have a lot of values attached to them, those titles. What about Gurumukhi? Think about the symbolism of Gurumukhi in leadership. For you, what is the symbolic use of Gurumukhi? Why did our gurus, Guru Nanak Ji and Guru Angad Dev Ji, they introduced Gurumukhi into, they created a script for Punjabi, which up to then was mainly a spoken language. So symbolically, in terms of leadership, what does it represent, the symbolic use of?
See, Punjabi is a language which is to be spoken in Punjab. The word Gurmukhi per se, it is from the words of the Guru. It is the Gurbani or Gurmukhi. When they started preparing script, I think Guru Amar Das Ji, the third Guru, he started about this language. And then, of course, it got final finishes only by the fifth Guru when lot was done. So Gurmukhi, when we say it is a language which relate to particularly Sikh community, it is a good language, and alphabets are little closer to Hindi because before Gurmukhi came into being, there was a Sanskrit and then there was a Hindi. So the evolution of this is out of that. A lot of alphabets of Gurmukhi or Punjabi are similar to what we have in Hindi.
Yes, there was the Landa script. The Gurumukhi derives from the Landa script. At that time, this is the Landa script. And yeah, so I think Guru Nanak Ji and Guru Angad Dev Ji, the second Guru, they created this into the Gurumukhi script that we use now.
That is true. There was not so much of direct communication with the English literature or the script, etc. But whatever they could lay hand, that was only the Hindi or Sanskrit or Urdu or Farsi. And they try to find a language which is closer to Gurbani, easy to understand, and unlike Sanskrit, this language should be such day-to-day spoken and understandable. So all the teaching and preachings are in Gurmukhi, which a common man understands without any difficulty.
I see. Yes, that's right. So it was about making the language accessible, you know, well, making it relevant so that everyone could understand it without any difficulty. What about Ekankar, the symbol of Ekankar? What does that mean to you?
This is something very great because people talk of names, Lord Krishna, Lord Rama, and maybe Lord Christ, and so on and so forth, various prophets or saints who came into being. But Guru Nanak, once he probably disappeared for a few days and went to an heavenly abode and came back, and he started the word Ik Onkar. The digit is one single. It can have no other meaning. We cannot write O-N-E, or I cannot write in Hindi or English or any language. It is a digit one, and one cannot be split. The Onkar, it relates to, he wanted to say this one relates to the Onkar, who is the all creator, invisible, all powerful, omnipotent, omnipresent, and that is the Onkar. One God for all humanity, or you can say the universe. So Ekonkar is something uniquely fine. Otherwise, there's the Om in Hindus. Like that, there can be another symbol which even Germans have. There can be many other symbols. But this Ik Onkar is something very unique.
Mm. So it reminds us, in terms of leadership, it reminds us of this concept of oneness, and that when we think of the oneness, we can see the interconnectedness of everything, right?
Yes.
Everything is interconnected. And so as leaders, we need to recognize the interconnectedness of everything, of the oneness. So what about the Khanda then? For you, what does the Khanda symbolize?
You see, this is a double-edged sword. Normal sword has only one edge for cutting. The Khanda has both. So as a warrior, art of war, to when you face, Khanda is, which is a very powerful sword to destroy the evil and protect the weaker. Khanda is a very powerful weapon at those times. It is more than a sword. It is a double sword, double-edged, and it symbolizes that it is a very strong weapon to be used by the soldiers.
Do you know how long we've had the Khanda as a symbol? Some people say that the Khanda became a symbol of the Sikhs in the 1930s with the Gaddar movement. Do you know if it's older than that? Where did the Khanda originate from? Because, you know, it's not in the Gurbani or anything. Where does that symbol come from?
The Khanda symbol comes only after Guru Gobind Singh formed the Panch Pyaras and gave them, baptized them with Amrit. He used the Khanda, the double-edged sword, in the water to purify it and put strength into this and put some sweet patasas. So the Khanda was used. It was the weapon which was Guru Gobind Singh's time has come into being, and it became popular as a weapon to be used in war thereafter. Before that, there was no Khanda.
I see. So
I could be wrong. But that's what it is.
Right. And the two swords on the side there, the swords of Miri Piri. So it's like the spiritual and the material world being both valid and both equal, right?
Yeah, Baba Buddha Ji, who was asked that to give Gurgadi that time to Guru Har Gobind Ji, and he put there was a scabbard. Normally sword is put on the left side because all right hand should be able to pull out the sword and use it. So it is on the left. But it so happened by chance he put it on the right. And then he said, oh, I think I did a mistake. And Guru Har Gobind Ji said, no, it is not a mistake. You put another on the left. So he had two swords, one for Miri, one for Piri. Even subsequently, Guru Gobind Singh said, I will create Sant Sipahi. They will be soldier, they will be saint. So Miri and Piri, uh, both two in one. Is Sikh who follows the norm. He's brave, he's strong, he's honest, he's everything. But he has to remember that I am protecting the weaker, but I am destroying the evil. So both Miri and Piri swords are significant.
Okay, brilliant. And so I suppose as leaders, we need to understand the importance of taking action, which is founded by our spiritual values, but in the worldly, we can't be recluses. We have to take action in the material world, don't we?
True. See, these good teaching of the noble people are ever living. They don't go away with the passage of time. What was formed 300 years ago at Guru Gobind Singh's time, or 500 years ago, Guru Nanak Dev's time, these are very valuable today. The kada on the right or left, whichever hand I am using, symbolizes that I must know good deed to be done, no bad act to be done. The hand has to be used for noble cause and not for any other. So it is a continuous reminder. This is not just a steel bangle wearing. It is that all the time it reminds you anything I put my hand on, it reminds me who am I. And this is a tenet given to me by Guru Gobind Singh, and therefore I must abide by this. So all our krars, panch krar are very significant, very nicely thought of and propagated. And today when we people who go for baptism, or you can call them Amritdhari, Amrit Shakna, and they have to go through this and they have to follow this.
And I suppose the Gada is a way of showing our commitment to the values of Sikhi, isn't it? Because we wear the Gada. The Gada is it's almost like a handcuff in the sense that we choose to wear this. We choose to be handcuffed to our values.
Not handcuff is a little strong word you're using. This is like a uniform to be distinguished. Like I'm a soldier basically. When I put on uniform in the whole of Honolulu, everybody look around me that I'm a Sikh person and very distinguished. So whether it's the kada or my turban or my other kirpans, all other like small kirpan, because you can't be carrying the big sword all the time. But that symbol symbolizes that these are binding on you. Many people get scared that I can't go to Amrit Shakna function because there's a lot of binding. Because as a soldier, if you wear the uniform, you have to be disciplined. You have to follow the norm, the dignity of the uniform you wear.
Right.
So
that's right. And so I'm sure you'd agree that the dastar, the bag, the turban, that's another part of the uniform, isn't it, of being a Sikh?
Being a Sikh, the turban is that's why we call Sardarji. The world over, the whole of world, wherever I go, nobody calls me by anything. They don't miss Sardarji either, Anna. Why he call me Sardarji? Because I'm wearing a turban. If there was no turban, I'm not a Sardarji. I'm anybody. So turban has a great, great significance. Right. And this relates to our keeping the hair and protecting them. I mean, today's girl can have a bob hair and dye hair and say, I want to look young, so I want to do makeup. That's a different story. But truly speaking, to live in the will of God, to live in a natural way, the honest way, and if hair has been there, Lord Christ has hair, Lord Krishna has hair, Rama has hair, all saint and rishi has long hair. Hair has a significance. Now to protect this hair, that they look okay and comfortable, turban was very necessary. It symbolizes, makes us distinct. As I mentioned to you, in Hawaii, I was there for 3 weeks. Whether it was in the market or I was going in a boat or visiting any other locality, I was so conspicuous. People used to walk up to me
Mhm.
because I was wearing a turban.
Right.
Often I travel to US almost every year because my daughter is there. So most of the airport where you're waiting for next flight to catch, somebody will walk up to you because I am wearing a turban. I'm distinguished among thousands and lakhs. I'm unique. I'm like a lotus flower in a pond. There can be many other weed and birds and insect and thing going on, but lotus is lotus.
Uh-huh. Yes.
And our turban is like that.
Yeah, some people describe the star like a crown. You know, they say it's like wearing a crown, so that it's like a symbol of leadership in a way, isn't it? That
Yes,
you're prepared to be visible, you're prepared to be noticed.
yes.
Yeah, you can't.
So
Yeah.
the very fact that his Guru Gobind Singh, when he baptized those five Pyara, people initially used to run away. You ask for a difficult task to be done, people shirk away. They try to look left and right, try to avoid it.
Mhm.
Now he say, if you wear uniform, you among lakhs a thousand, you are unique. You cannot shy away from responsibility. You are a Sikh, you shall and will help the poor, help the weaker, be honest, and follow all the principles. As I state to you, therefore, being a Sikh symbolizing is important.
Mm. Yeah.
Somebody say instead of a turban, he say, I'll modify, I'll have a small little cap.
Uh-huh.
So Guru Gobind Singh has very specifically said, the no wearing of caps. It is a turban. And let me mention to you, I am wearing a turban, and what I am putting this white portion is also called 50.
Mhm.
In British Army, when soldiers used to put on a turban, and sometimes they want to, when they're off duty, they want to take it off and take rest.
Mhm.
So they had 6 meters is the length of turban in those days. So they had a 50%, 3 meter long, called Choti Dastar, that you put on this and be comfortable. You can sleep. But so now we have modified that. From that 3 meter, we have come down to only about half a feet. Uh, I mean, say 6 inch wide and say about 3 feet long, and we call it 50. But we symbolize it here. This is actually Choti Dastar, and this is the main Dastar.
Mhm. Okay, great. Thank you. So let me ask you now about the symbolism of seva and langar. You know, we as Sikhs, we all understand the importance of doing seva. We understand the importance of langar and, you know, ban ke shakna. What do these things symbolize? What do these behaviors symbolize?
You see, this is very well known that irrespective of the status, whether he's a king or he's a monk or he's a servant or he's a government official or he's a religious leader, to take food longer, everybody sits down on the floor, on the carpet which has been laid out, and in the same type of utensil, they call it thali or a plate, and same food is served to all in the same way, and everybody eats together. Is a togetherness, and there is a harmony, and there is a, in a way, diversity, in a way, respect for all, and there is no caste system in this. There is no gender discrimination in this. Langar is for everyone, and some places is round the clock. Anytime you walk in. In olden days, Gurudwara was a distinguished location. When people used to walk long distance, all the travelers, and they run out of food, they are hungry, they way to homebound to Gurudwara. They know when we go to Gurudwara, the word is Gurudwara. Once you go there, there will be food, there will be help, so there will be seva. Now, seva in Langar is in various forms. After all, it is a self-supporting, self-sustaining. And Langar started with Guru Nanak Dev Ji. When first time he made this food for those 7 or 10 saints who were in the wandering around in the jungle, they were hungry. So Langar today, seva means that people can contribute in the form of a flour, rice, dal, many other vegetables. any other way, even utensil they can contribute so that it sustains. And as we say in our Gurdwara, food is never finished. It is always available for any number of people at any time. This is through Kar Seva, voluntary Seva. And at Guru Gobind Singh's time, one of the thing is 1/10 of your saving you should put on the good cause like this Seva. Whether you put in langar or you put in helping the weaker people, giving them shelter, giving them clothes, whatever you want. So seva is that.
And I suppose in terms of leadership, it's important because when we, as leaders, we sit on the floor like everyone else. The leader sits on the floor. The leader doesn't sit on a seat above everyone else. They sit on the floor and eat together with everyone. So there's that element of leadership as well, that everybody needs to be equal.
Yeah, this is not leadership. Sitting in the langar or in the langar hall and having a food together symbolizes no discrimination, no caste system, no rich or poor, no strong or weak, no gender discrimination. Everybody is alike and everybody eats the same food. It is to bring people at the same level of thinking, same level of thoughts, because going to Gurdwara, going to Langar brings a people reality that we are one person. The God has created all of us as one.
And that does include leaders as well, though, because somebody could be a very rich business person, a multimillionaire, but when they go to the Gurdwara, they're supposed to sit on the floor and eat the langar like everyone else.
Because he or she has to follow the norms which is very well laid down. Langar is common for all, and there's the only way to sit down, and you will be served in the plate or the utensil as available there. You can't be asking separate food to be sit. And I want a chair and a table and sit down somewhere there. You can go to hotel.
Yeah.
Having come to Gurdwara, you have to come down. As you would know, Amritsar Gurdwara is the only worship place in the world where you step down. Gurdwara is much lower than the normal surface. First, you have to come down. Before you enter into the Harimandir Sahib, you have to step down from the normal road which you're walking, come down, step down, step down, step down, and then you go. Like that, Gurdwara, when you go, it is Gurudwara. It belongs to everyone. Guru is for everyone, so it belongs to you and everybody. So protect, serve, contribute, and do the seva. Seva can be any type. People do car seva, and cleaning shoes, cleaning utensils. You find our ladies, our sisters, our people making chapatis in the langar. Nowadays, machines have come in to automate it.
I don't like I don't like the machines.
Yeah, it has different taste, but the care they do, people working behind, that is a seva.
Yeah, but if they make rotis that don't taste very nice, for me that's kind of convenient.
True.
So yeah, I don't like those machines. But anyway, let me ask you about the next symbol is the Nishan Sahib. So symbolically, what does the Nishan Sahib represent?
Oh, Nishan Sahib was this color of the Nishan Sahib is called Kesari, or is a little orange color. It's a symbol, is a color of bravery. On the flag, you find the symbol of all our khandas, swords, and the chakra, which some people put on the chakra on this. You can use this as a weapon. So all these are onto this, and this flag has to be hosted higher than any building around, so that the traveler and the people coming from far distance can see where is the Gurdwara. They don't have to ask anybody. So it is tall enough to be seen from distance. and know this is in the Gurdwara. So people respect. Nishan Sahib is a symbol of bravery. And then, of course, all the symbols are on top. So it is important.
Was the color of the Nishan Sahib different before? Like, before the 80s, was the Nishan Sahib, did we used to have different colors for the Nishan Sahib, like blue and yellow?
No, blue, only the people who are Nihangs, etc., a particular type of group of people, they put on everything blue. They put on blue uniform. And this is a very good point. Blue is a symbol of infinity. Sky is blue, the ocean is blue. And people like you are wearing not that way. You are wearing blue dress. People are big-hearted people who like blue color because blue is vastness. So people started making it, but truly, as on now or otherwise, it is a saffron color. It is a yellowish color, called golden color. That is the standard flag, which is accepted.
Yeah. Okay. Let me finally ask you about the symbolism of Guru Gobind Singh Ji on the horse and the falcon. What does that represent in terms of leadership, the horse and the falcon?
So these falcon, these horse, in those days, to ride a horse, a great horse, speeding horse, you can reach anywhere. This is a symbol of bravery. Is a person in motion who is going to attack, who is going to destroy the evil. And he's also carrying the falcon. This falcon can fly and catch. In those days, symbolically, many things have happened. Somebody released the falcon, this falcon went and caught the other falcon, and there was a lot of dispute onto that. Falcon is also a bravery. It goes and catches small birds here and there. But the horse, the way it is shown symbolically, it is that ready to go. His galloping horse is a brave horse who is going to go fast. And falcon brings information. And falcon can go and tell you what is happening, can go catch something, bring it back.
Also, in those days of Guru Gobind Singh Ji, people from the lower caste were not allowed to ride horses, were they?
No, you're right. They were not allowed to ride horses. They were allowed to walk. They were not allowed even to wear the good shoe, good clothes. And they were to be discriminated and discouraged all the time to stay low, look low, so that they are discriminated. But Guru Gobind Singh Panch Pyara is two of them. There were three of them out of five were from lower caste, and he wanted to bring them up.
Right, and they were from lower caste, but they rode horses.
They rode everything. They rode whole of. They went through. They were brave people, great people.
So
horse is like today's tank or a fighter aircraft. In those days, horse and elephants, they were the strong possession of a great warrior, because with that he could go strongly and destroy the enemy or destroy the evil thing. So horse is a symbol of strength, symbol of bravery.
And I suppose also a symbol of royalty in a way, that everyone can be powerful, because at that time only the powerful people could ride horses. But then with Sikhi, everyone was allowed to ride horses. In Sikhi, if you were a Sikh, and
not only that, we had an army who was riding the horse. So even Lord Krishna's time, Mahabharata's time, people were riding horses and moving, attacking. So riding a horse with a view to chase the enemy, to destroy the enemy, to fight the evil, has been there. Soldiers will do this job. But as a leader who is leading that particular contingent, that particular army, his horse has to be really the strong one, the fastest one, that he can outmaneuver then go galloping and do the needful job.
But I suppose that before Sikhi, people who were from the warrior caste, like the Kshatriyas, they wouldn't accept people from the lower caste to join
True.
them. Yeah.
See, that was the doing of Manu. Manu created 4 castes. He started Brahman, Kshatriya, Shudra, and Vas. So he distinguished these particular community, and it carried on and on and on. But in between, of course, you came the Mohammedans. But in Guru Gobind Singh's time, even thereafter at Maharaja Ranjit Singh's time, they were Muslim people. In Guru Gobind Singh's army, they were Pathans who were supporting Guruji. So there was no discrimination on religion basis, on caste basis, and that is the Sikhism. The people who believe in real democracy were there in Sikhism. And Panch Pyara means what? Collective decision making. Not one man's word always go. Collectively sit together, decide what you want, it will be done. And Guru Gobind Singh demonstrated that he obeyed the outcome of 5-6, whether it was during battle, whether leaving Chamkaur Gadi or before that Anandpur Sahib, whatever the 5 decided, he accepted it most willingly. And that is a refinement. Our is a latest religion, just about 350 odd year old, and we have got the best of all. Otherwise, every religion is good. Before Sikhism, the word was existing, and they were doing fine. And we are not the only one that before us there was nothing, and after us will be nothing. That is not the case. We improved.
You've made a very good, important point about the symbolism of 5 Panch Pyare for decision making, you know, because so decision making by consensus, because if there are 5 people making a decision, if there are only 4 people, you could have 2 people who believe one thing and 2 people another thing, and then there's a deadlock. But if you have 5, it can, you know, there's no kind of like deadlock then, because there's always that odd number, so that you're always going to have a majority. So it's 5 people and making a democratic decision based on consensus of 5.
The symbol of 5 is very significant. We have 5 fingers. We have 5 senses. We have Panch Pyaras. We have 5. So 5 itself is in the center of 0 to 10 and 9 you count. 5 comes over there. So you have to have a odd number so that the decision is always taken and nothing remains hanging. 2, as you rightly said. They were Panch Pyara, and they always, today in Akal Takht, which is our seat of decision making, and there is Jathedar in Akal Takht, and there are Panch Pyara along with him. He doesn't decide himself. Panch Pyara and the Jathedar of Akal Takht, they decide the verdict to be given on any event.
Yes. So that's the point. It's like even Guru Gobind Singh Ji, he obeyed the Panch Pyare. You know, there were times when they told him, you know, they, like, for example, you know, that when they were captured in that fort, you know, when they were imprisoned, well, basically imprisoned, and the Panch Pyare, they told Guru Gobind Singh Ji what he needed to do, you know, that he needed to get out of there, for example. And so he listened to the Panch Pyare, didn't he?
Yes. Even when he has to leave the Anandpur Sahib, when they were surrounded for over 3, 4, 5 months, and ultimately the decision was taken that we must leave the fort and go away. And then immediately they were crossing the river Satluj and they were attacked. Many things happened. Mata Gujri and the Sahibzada, they got separated. And then there's a place called Chamkaur Gadi, the Battle of Chamkaur. There were only 42 people total with Guru Gobind Singh. So he used to send about 7 people at a time to go out of that fort and fight the battle with more than 10,000 soldiers down below. And nobody going to come back. So it used carried on for 2-3 days. And then in between, then Guru Sahib, the elder son, he requested to go. He went. The next one also went. When only 5 were left, oh, no. 11 were left, 11 or 10. Then they decided that Guru Gobind Singh, you have to go. He said, no, I will fight it out. How can I leave you in the lurch? I am your leader and I will fight for you and for myself. And if I die, is okay. They say, no, this is not acceptable. There can be many like us, but there can be none like you. You have to disappear. So then he didn't listen. Then the 5 people say, we at the Panch Pyara under you hereby declare that you must vacate and leave immediately. We will take care. And then everything happened. His chola was worn by one of the Sikhs who was there. There were only 5, 6 left, and they kept fighting, and he disappeared from there. And his escape itself is something very, very great. Muslims, Muhammad people who saved him, who protected him, carried him through the difficult time. So he was not against any religion. For him, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Isai, everybody was just the same.
Mhm. Yes.
So he followed whenever 5 people got together, he followed. He
That's
expected
right.
that.
Right. Yeah. So that's, yeah, it's, I remember hearing that story about the Panch Pyare, about how he, they forced him to escape because they
Yes.
had authority. As the Panch Pyare, they had the decision-making authority in that to order him to leave and to escape. Yeah.
They gave him 3 more people to accompany him, and Guru Gobind Singh. And at the night, he said, then I will not quietly go. I'll shout, declare that here I go. If you can catch me, try. And he disappeared. Then the very difficulty thing happened. He got separated from those 2, 3 people which were accompanying him, and he was wandering around in the jungles. And for a couple of days, then perchance, by chance, then he was spotted. And then, of course, good thing happened thereafter. He went to Damdama Sahib, which is in Bathinda area. And then that's the place he wrote down the Guru Granth Sahib. He rewrote the whole.
Okay, excellent. Well, Dr. Sabji, thank you very much. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji.
Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I'm delighted to see that you are doing a great research. Waheguru, 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 Waheguru.